Thank you so much for tuning in. If you find this content exciting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the upcoming episodes. A simple like and share from you will be a huge motivation for me to keep writing and releasing more stories. Now, let's step into this thrilling world together. After 7 silent months adrift in the dark, the red planet finally filled the viewport. Mars was no longer a pinprick of light, it loomed now as a world, vast and scarred, storms coiling like titans across its surface, canyons ripped deep into its flesh, shadows cutting across its face like the lines of age. Daniel stared, heart hammering. In his journal he had once written, "We are not explorers. We are the chosen." And now, staring at that world, the words pressed down on him with unbearable weight. Michael's hands gripped the controls. His eyes burned, not with wonder, but with the hunger of a man facing down a storm. Alina's voice broke the silence, clipped and tense. "Orbit stable. Ion thrusters primed. Once we hit the atmosphere, it's going to get ugly." Ugly came fast. Ares' eye slammed into the thin Martian air, shaking like it was caught in the jaws of some vast beast. Dust clouds hit them head-on, red fire across the screens. Fatima screamed, clutching her harness. "God, this planet wants to kill us." "Hold steady," Michael roared, eyes locked on the radar. "I'll get us down." The ship convulsed, alarms shrieking. Luis shouted from the med bay. "If this keeps up, we'll come apart." Elena cursed, fingers flying. "Diverting power to the stabilizers." "Michael, 10 degrees left, now." The ship rolled hard, throwing red dust across the viewport like a tidal wave. Daniel felt his chest collapse under the G-force, lungs burning. Time stretched, endless, then, suddenly, the storm fell away. A plain opened before them, vast and unbroken. Utopia Planitia. Michael's voice cracked through the comms. "Brace for landing." Impact. Dust exploded upward. Struts screeched. The Ares eye bucked once, twice, then settled. Silence. Then the voice of the system, landing successful. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then laughter, sobs, the release of fear too long caged. Daniel whispered through the rush of air. We did it. The first humans on Mars." The hatch opened. Bitter wind and cold dust slipped inside. 6 suits sealed tight, 6 figures ready. Michael was first. He stepped down slow, deliberate. His boot sank into the fine red powder. He looked out across the wasteland and spoke into history. "With all its glory, Mars belongs to humanity." Daniel followed, crouched, pressed his gloved hand into the dirt. He said nothing. The silence was enough. The dust clung to him, cold, eternal. Fatima's voice cracked, raw with tears. "We've touched history." Elena, Luis, Akira joined them. 6 souls in a circle on an alien plane, under a pale red sky. Far on the horizon, Olympus Mons rose like a god. Then Akira's radar sang. A sharp beep. His eyes widened. "There's a signal, faint, but real." From Kandor Chasma. The crew froze. The planet was speaking. Daniel drew in a long breath, eyes fixed on the southern haze. "We came to greet Mars," he murmured. But Mars spoke first. That night he wrote. "Day 1. We've landed. Yet it feels less like conquest, and more like a welcome. Or a warning." The first dawn on Mars rose in silence. From the viewport of Ares' eye, the sun was nothing like home. Smaller, fainter, it bled only a pale light into the thin atmosphere, painting the barren land in shades of rust and blood. The world outside looked less like a planet than a graveyard, vast, cold, and eternal. Daniel pressed his palm to the metal rim of the window, his breath fogging the visor. His pulse stumbled in his chest. This was it. A new world, waiting. His voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. "We're really here." Fatima stepped beside him, her eyes wet behind the glass. Her voice shook with awe. "A dream of humanity, and now it's real." No one had the luxury to linger in wonder. Alina's voice cut through the comms, sharp and commanding. "We have 48 hours to raise the base. Fail, and the cold and radiation will finish us off." The spell broke. Everyone moved. Modules unfolded from the cargo hold like steel origami, slamming into the soil with mechanical finality. Robotic arms stretched outward, locking anchors deep into the Martian ground. Each thunk echoed through Daniel's chest. That sound, strange, alien, was the heartbeat of a house being built on a dead planet. Michael guided the crane with the precision of a surgeon, a smirk tugging at his lips. Not bad. Even Mars will have to bow eventually. Daniel heard him but said nothing. To him, it didn't sound like triumph. It sounded like a declaration of war. Luis and Fatima dragged crates of oxygen, water, and sealed rations from the ship into the expanding habitat. Luis puffed, sweat dripping inside his suit, but forced a grin. Feels just like moving house. Only this one's a few dozen million miles from Earth. Fatima laughed weakly, then turned toward the swirling storms beyond the shield windows. The laughter died. Out there, dust still prowled like ghosts, hunting. While raising the solar tower, Elena noticed a stutter in the system. Her brow furrowed. Michael, keep the output steady. If the wings don't open all the way, we lose power. Michael's jaw clenched. Relax. I've got it. Her reply came cold. On Mars, one mistake kills us all. Drop the ego. Silence followed. The comm line buzzed with static, heavy as lead. Daniel broke it gently. Let it go. We work as one, or we don't work at all. But he knew. The fracture between Michael and Elena was more than pride, it was a crack waiting to split wide open. When the framework of Mars Base Alpha finally stood, Daniel slipped into the bio lab. His hands cradled a small container, sterile soil, carefully prepared, and a pouch of potatoes carried all the way from Earth. The crew gathered, breath caught, as he knelt by the grow bed. His hands trembled, not with fear, but reverence. He pressed the first potato into the soil. His voice, steady but hushed, filled the chamber. This isn't just a test. This is our declaration. Life can take root anywhere. He poured recycled water drop by drop, letting it seep into the red dust. Luis murmured, a baptism, for the planet itself. Fatima's cheeks streaked with tears. Her voice broke but her eyes blazed. We just wrote the first line of a new history. That night, while the others slept fitfully, Daniel sat before his journal screen. The pale glow carved lines of exhaustion across his face, but his eyes still carried fire. Day 2 Mars Base Alpha stands. I've planted the first green life in Martian soil. As I watched the water sink into the dust, I felt this planet's heartbeat align with ours. If the seed takes, it will prove one thing: life never yields. Through the narrow window above him, the Martian sky stretched black, heavy with stars. For a moment, he felt eyes upon them, ancient, unseen, watching. The illusion shattered with a piercing beep. Alarms flared in the command room. Akira bolted upright, racing to the console. Red data streams blinked and pulsed. Signal from Kandor Chasma. His voice shook. Stronger than before. The pattern, it's repeating. The crew crowded around. Fatima's hands trembled. They know we planted life. Michael's fists clenched against the chair. His voice was iron. No, this isn't a greeting. This is a warning. We just trespassed. Elena stood apart, her eyes clouded. Orders from Moscow whispered in her mind, all data must be transmitted home. But when she looked at her crewmates, Daniel's calm, Fatima's wonder, Akira's trembling hope, her chest tightened. The signal screamed, flooding the habitat with a low, resonant roar. Then, words. Warped, broken, but undeniable. Remember, memory. Fatima collapsed, clutching her chest. They're guiding us, welcoming us. Michael shouted over her, fury in his eyes. No, they're baiting us. Follow this and we die. Daniel said nothing. His hands hovered over the journal, adding one final line. Day 2 the green has touched red. And Mars has spoken back. Is it welcome, or the last warning we'll ever hear? Outside, the wind howled. Inside, 6 souls listened to the voice of a dead world. The third dawn at Mars Base Alpha came dim and frail. Through the haze of red dust, the sun rose, a pale coin in a rust-colored sky. Its light was weak, washing the land in tones of gray and orange, as if the planet itself refused to wake. Beyond the base stretched dunes frozen in place, shaped like waves, silent but furious. Fatima sealed her suit, eyes burning with anticipation. Today, she and Elena had been assigned to a geological survey east of the base. For Fatima, it was more than science. It was a chance to prove what she had believed all her life: Mars had once held oceans and life. The 2 rovers rumbled across the barren flats, wheels carving deep tracks into the powdery soil. Elena drove, hands steady, her face impassive behind the visor. Fatima, by contrast, never looked up from her display. High mineralization, irregular strata. Her voice trembled with excitement. Elena, do you see? These layers, they weren't carved by wind. They were shaped by water. Elena spared a glance, tone clipped. I see data, not proof. Science doesn't bow to intuition. Fatima bit her lip, holding her tongue, but her eyes shone brighter. They reached a cliffside of weathered stone. Fatima froze. Across the face of the rock ran bands of parallel lines, like waves, long ago, turned to stone. She stumbled out of the rover, pressed her gloved palm to the surface. Her voice broke. Elena, this was a shoreline. The sea pulled back, but it left its scars. Elena joined her, scraping a fragment loose, sliding it into the analyzer. The readout blinked. Sedimentary deposits. Formed only in liquid water. For a moment, Elena had no words. Then, quietly, you may be right, this place was once underwater. Fatima's tears fogged the inside of her helmet. She laughed through the sobs. I knew it. Mars was blue. Mars had oceans. We are not the first to dream of seas here. Back at base, the report transmitted. Michael was first to respond. His voice cut through the comms, sharp, bitter. Oceans. You're calling a few stripes of rock an ocean. That's fantasy. Fatima's anger flared. You don't understand. This is evidence. Life doesn't bloom in a desert, it rises from water. From oceans. Michael barked a laugh, cold. Life. If it existed, it killed itself. And now you want to worship these rocks as holy relics. Silence crackled over the channel. Elena kept her hands on the controls, face unreadable. But inside, she felt the fracture widening, science against cynicism, belief against scorn. In the base, Daniel read the incoming data. His chest tightened. He opened his journal, the words pouring out. Day 3 Fatima found what may be the memory of seas. If Mars was once blue, it too must have dreamed. But why did the oceans vanish? Why did a civilization, if it ever existed, collapse into dust? I fear the answer is not only Mars' past, but Earth's future. When Fatima and Elena returned, Michael was waiting at the hatch. He jabbed a finger at the rock sample in Fatima's hands. His voice was ice. This proves nothing. It's a distraction. A waste of time. Fatima clutched the stone to her chest, eyes blazing. No. This is memory. Memory of oceans. Memory of life. And if we don't listen to it, Michael, we will repeat their death. Elena stood between them, silent. Yet in her mind, she still heard the whisper of waves, waves that had once broken against the shores of a Martian sea, now long gone. Outside, the dust howled. Inside, faith and doubt clashed in the hearts of 6 fragile humans, alone on a dead world that might not be so dead after all. Day 4 at Mars Base Alpha. The morning began with an unsettling quiet. The sky was a dull smear of gray, thick with dust. Sunlight barely trickled through, 1/10 the strength of Earth. Daniel stood at the observation port, uneasy. The silence was wrong. Too heavy. Elena checked the meteorological radar. Her voice turned sharp, commanding. Still air isn't peace. It's warning. A major storm front is building. We've got less than 8 hours. On the monitor, a vast red spiral bloomed across the map, crawling toward them. Fatima clutched her notebook, whispering as her hands shook. It's like, the whole planet's about to scream. The crew exploded into motion. Michael barked orders, anchoring modules with steel bolts. Luis hauled medicine and water into the bunker. Fatima joined Daniel in sealing the bio-lab, where the first potatoes had been planted. Daniel brushed a gloved hand over the soil container, whispering as if to a child. You have to live, not just for us, but for Earth. Outside, the dunes began to tremble. Dust rose like mist. The first moan of wind rose distant and hollow. Minutes later, it became a roar. The entire base shook. Dust slammed the hull like hail, relentless, deafening. The light vanished. The world outside dissolved into thick, suffocating red. Solar panels dimmed under the choking storm. The habitat lights flickered, shifting into power save mode. Michael cursed. Damn it, if we lose more power, half the life support's going offline. Luis's voice was tight. No backup oxygen. We last days, at most. Elena stayed cold, steady. Then we keep the collector alive. If it dies, so do we. By the second day, power output dropped to critical. The storm had wrenched the solar antenna off alignment. Elena slammed her helmet visor shut. I'll go. I can realign it. Daniel froze. No, out there. Wind will tear the rover in half. Her eyes met his, unflinching. If the antenna stays off, we die in the dark. I'm the engineer. If not me, who? The silence was a verdict. Finally Daniel exhaled and nodded. Then you're not going alone. The airlock hissed. Wind howled through the gap like a predator's scream. Daniel and Elena clipped safety lines to the hull and stepped out. Mars was gone. Only the storm remained, an ocean of dust, red and endless. The grid was so dense it erased the horizon. Only the small beams of their helmet lamps cut through the chaos. Each step was a battle. The tether lines strained, pulled taut, threatening to snap. Elena, hold the line. Daniel shouted, his voice lost in the roar. The antenna loomed, half bent, jammed in its housing. Elena dropped to her knees, wrenching at the lock. Metal screamed. Nothing moved. Daniel braced the line, shielding her body with his. Dust lashed the visors, leaving streaks of opaque grit. His chest hammered, one slip, one gust too strong, and they'd vanish into the Red Sea. Elena, hurry, pressure's building, she snarled, muscles burning, and twisted with everything she had. At last, the bolt snapped free. The antenna swung back into place. Daniel's HUD flashed green, power climbing. Elena's voice cracked through the comms, fierce with triumph. It's working. The victory lasted seconds. A cyclone gust slammed them sideways. Elena lost footing, her body lifted, dragged toward the void. Elena. Daniel lunged, catching her arm. The tether stretched to its limit, thrumming like a bowstring ready to snap. Elena's eyes locked with his through the dust-smeared visor. Her voice was small, broken by static. If I let go, you have to survive, Daniel. No. His roar shook with fury. I don't lose people. Not here. Not now. With a savage pull, he yanked her down. Both of them crashed hard into the soil, swallowed in red haze. Alive. They stumbled back inside the airlock, battered, breath ragged. Luis rushed forward, scanning vitals. Fatima's tears spilled as she gripped Elena's arm. Michael leaned against the wall, arms crossed, but relief betrayed his eyes. Elena collapsed into a chair, drenched in sweat under her suit. Daniel slumped beside her, lungs heaving. Then, a grin. We're still breathing. That counts. That night, Daniel wrote. Day 6. The storm lasted 4 days. We nearly lost everything. Elena and I fought the wind to keep the antenna alive. I saw death at arm's length. But I also saw how hard we cling to life. Mars will not bow, but neither will we. He paused, staring out the port. The storm had not yet cleared. The planet seemed to watch them, testing, waiting. As Daniel set down his pen, the radar console blinked. A new pattern cut through the storm noise, steady, deliberate. Akira's voice cracked with shock. Candor Chasma, it's transmitting again. Elena clenched her fists. Daniel stood frozen, the thought hammering in his mind. What if the storms are not random? What if Mars itself is playing its game with us? Outside, the red planet raged on. Inside, the crew realized they were no longer alone. 4 days of storm had left Mars Base Alpha battered and hollow. The hull bore scratches where dust had clawed it like knives. Subsystems blinked in standby, too damaged to function. The crew gathered in the control room, faces pale under the sickly yellow lights. Daniel's voice was hoarse, heavy with exhaustion. We survived. But this was only the beginning. Mars won't let us rest. Elena sat silently, a recycled water cup trembling in her hands. She still felt the phantom weight of the wind hurling her toward death. The memory hadn't left. The silence broke with a long, piercing beep. Akira snapped upright, eyes fixed on the console. Graphs rolled across the screen, waveforms, but not random. Look at this, he whispered, pointing. The signal's not noise. It has structure, rhythm, it's language. The room froze. Fatima clutched her worn notebook to her chest, her voice trembling with awe. Candor Chasma, the canyon. Hundreds of kilometers long. They're calling us. Michael scoffed, slapping the armrest. Fairy tales. You're chasing ghosts. It's geologic noise, or magnetic interference. Nothing more. Akira's head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. I know the difference. This isn't nature. I swear to you, it's deliberate. Tension thickened, choking the air. Daniel watched as the fault lines widened across the crew. Fatima's voice shook, but her conviction didn't. If there's intelligence here, we must answer. They left memories, signs. Maybe, they want to teach us. Michael's laugh was sharp, bitter. Teach us. Or trap us. If something was down there, it's been buried for millions of years. Why call out now, unless we've triggered what should have stayed hidden? Elena spoke at last, low but steady. Michael's right to be cautious. But if this is real, if there's ancient intelligence waiting in that canyon, we can't ignore it. Earth bled to send us here. If we turn our backs now, what was it all for? Daniel leaned forward, fingers tapping the table. So here we are. One path is safety, clinging to this fragile base. The other is the canyon, a signal that could rewrite the history of mankind. That night, Daniel stood alone at the observatory, eyes locked south. Kandar Chasma stretched unseen in the darkness, yet he felt it, like vast eyes hidden in the rock, watching. He opened his journal, fingers heavy. Day 7. The signal beats like a heart. Steady, relentless. Fatima calls it an invitation. Michael swears it's a trap. I don't know, but I feel one truth, we are not just visitors here. Mars knows we've arrived. Near midnight, as the base lay in uneasy sleep, the signal surged. A low resonance shook the walls. Screens lit up on their own, flooding with crimson glyphs, unfamiliar, burning. Akira stumbled from his bunk, breath ragged. It's coordinates. Look, coordinates inside the canyon. Fatima appeared behind him, eyes shimmering. They're inviting us. Michael ripped a cable free, voice raw with fury. No, we're not walking into a damn tomb. Daniel's hand clenched. His heart hammered as he stared at the glowing symbols. The choice was no longer distant. It was here, now. And deep inside, he knew. They would go to Kandar Chasma, whether by hope, or by doom. Kandar Chasma, nearly 800 kilometers long, deeper than the Grand Canyon, had become the center of every thought, every argument. The signal from within left no peace in the base. In the end, Daniel made his call, a small recon team, not the full crew. A risk contained. Michael volunteered instantly, eyes lit with fire. I'll lead. If there's something down there, I'll be the first to see it. Elena bristled. You can't just charge into the unknown. Michael smirked. We didn't come here to cower in tin cans. We came to conquer. Daniel hesitated, then finally nodded. Michael goes. John Miller and Park Ji-hoon with him. You'll carry backup transponders. If anything goes wrong, you turn back. Luis pressed a vial of emergency meds into Michael's hand, his voice hard. Remember, there's only one doctor here. Too far, and I can't save you. Michael's eyes never wavered. For him, this wasn't just duty. It was a chance to prove himself against Mars itself. 2 rovers cut across the red plain, leaving tracks in the dust. Wind hissed over their hulls, faint but restless. Ahead, Kandar Chasma opened like a wound, ripping the planet's skin wide. John whispered, awe in his voice. God, it's bigger than anything back on Earth. Ji-hoon swallowed, hands tight on the controls. Feels like we're driving into a monster's mouth. Michael said nothing. Fear and exhilaration tangled inside him, sharper with each kilometer. At the rim, the canyon unfurled, walls kilometers high, dropping into endless black. Engines strained as they began the descent, wheels sliding on loose rock. 2 hours in, Akira's telemetry spiked. The signal pulsed steady, like a drumbeat through stone. Base Alpha, intensity doubled. You're close, John reported. Akira's reply came sharp, uneasy. Slow down. It feels like it's watching us. Michael chuckled. All we see are rocks. Don't lose your mind, Akira. But even as he spoke, a surge rattled their instruments. Screens flickered, symbols blooming in red. Not noise, symbols. Ji-hoon's voice cracked. Michael, something's wrong. Michael gripped the wheel, jaw set. No, we push forward. We're too far in to turn back now. The deeper they went, the thinner the sunlight. Headlamps carved narrow tunnels of light against sheer walls, scarred with horizontal bands. John's breath caught. These look like riverbanks. Ancient shorelines. Michael snapped, harsher than he meant. Stay focused. But he felt it too, the crushing silence. The absence of wind, only their engines echoing back like heartbeats in a tomb. Without warning, the second rover shuddered and died. Lights out. Systems dead. Power loss. John's voice spiked with panic. We've got nothing. Michael braked hard, jumped out. The canyon swallowed them in darkness. Only narrow beams of handheld lamps pierced the void. A low hum rolled through the rock, deep and mournful. The ground quivered under their boots. Ji-hoon whispered, terror in his throat. Michael, something's under the sand. Michael snapped the backup transmitter online. Base Alpha, we've lost one vehicle. Request guidance. Static. Nothing but static. In the confusion, a beam of light caught something, black metal rising out of the dust. Smooth. Gleaming. Alien. John staggered back. What the hell is that? Before Michael could answer, the ground collapsed. Sand gave way, a sinkhole yawning beneath them. Michael lunged, catching Ji-hoon's arm, only to feel it slip. In an instant, Ji-hoon and John were gone, swallowed whole. Their screams echoed, then silence. No, John. Ji-hoon. Michael roared. A sudden flare of blue light burst from the metallic object. A shockwave hurled Michael across the stone. His body slammed hard. Consciousness slipped, and in the fading dark, a whisper coiled inside his skull. You were not allowed to take. Hours later, Daniel's rescue team found him sprawled at the canyon's edge. Suit torn, blood seeping into the gloves. The backup beacon lay shattered beside him. No sign of John. No sign of Ji-hoon. Back in the base, Michael opened his eyes. They were vacant, glassy. His voice was a rasp. They don't want us to take it. They warned us. Then he slipped back into unconsciousness. Luis hovered, pale. Head trauma, yes. But there's more. Something's touched his mind. The room fell silent. 2 comrades, gone. And Michael, returned not as himself, but as something broken. That night, Daniel's pen trembled as he wrote. Day 9 we lost John and Ji-hoon. Michael returned, but hollow. He muttered words that weren't his. I know he heard something. Mars is no dead world. It's guarding secrets. And tonight, it gave us a warning, we are not permitted to take. Daniel lowered the journal, eyes drifting to the southern horizon. Kandar Chasma loomed in the dark, a wound in the planet's skin. And from within that wound, he felt it. Eyes, watching, waiting. Mars Base Alpha felt like a tomb. 2 crewmates, John Miller and Park Ji-hoon, were gone, swallowed by the canyon. Michael lay in the med bay, his wounds patched, but his mind fractured. He muttered endlessly through clenched teeth. They don't want us to take, don't take it. Fatima wept openly, face buried in her hands. She hadn't been close to John or Ji-hoon, but here, every life was irreplaceable, every loss a wound in the whole. Elena stood silent in the corner, fists tight, guilt carved deep in her eyes. Daniel finally broke the silence. We go back. We can't let this vanish into the dark. If there's something down there, we need to know. Fatima lifted her head, eyes shining through tears. I'm going with you. I need to see where they disappeared. Elena's jaw tightened. It's suicide. But, if you've decided, I'll prep the rover. The rover rumbled across the red plain, Daniel at the wheel, Fatima clutching her notebook tight. Thin winds blew dust across the windshield, smearing the horizon into gray haze. When Kandar Chasma appeared, it yawned before them, vast walls, a black wound cutting the planet open. Fatima whispered, awed and trembling. This isn't just geology. It feels like a scar. A scar of memory. Daniel said nothing, but his gaze was locked on the abyss. Hours later, they reached the site where Michael had been found. The rover halted. Fatima stepped out, knees weak as she saw the long grooves in the sand, signs of the struggle, marks of men being dragged down. This is where Ji-hoon and John vanished, she murmured. Daniel knelt, digging with his gloved hands. Then, a shock. His fingers struck something cold, smooth, unyielding. There's something here, he said. Together they cleared the sand. Slowly, a black metallic surface emerged, half buried. Glossy, mirror-like, untouched by dust despite the endles. Fatima pressed her glove against it. A shiver shot up her arm. Instruments spiked, low, steady electromagnetic output. Daniel, she gasped, it's still active. After millions of years underground, it's still alive. Daniel's voice was low, reverent. This isn't natural. No mineral holds energy like this. Fatima's eyes blazed with near-religious awe. Do you see? Proof. A mind once lived here. A civilization on Mars. Daniel didn't argue. He knew she was right. But fear pressed hard against his chest. They documented the site, took soil samples, cut free a fragment of the alloy. But the instant they connected instruments, the object pulsed. A surge ripped through the rover, lights flaring and dying. Fatima cried out, it's reacting to us. Daniel yanked the cables free. The rover steadied, but warning lights still flashed red. "We can't stay," he snapped. "We take what we have and get out." Fatima cradled the shard like a relic. This alone rewrites human history. When the rover rolled back into Base Alpha, the crew swarmed. Elena inspected the data grimly, while Akira nearly shook with excitement at the alloy fragment. "The energy field," Akira breathed, "it's not from any known tech. It's like a beacon. Artificial. Ancient." On the medbay bed, Michael stirred. His eyes widened at the sight of the fragment. His voice cracked into a scream. "No, don't bring it here. They won't forgive us." Luis sedated him quickly, but the room fell into heavy silence. That night, Daniel sat at his desk. The alloy shard glowed faintly, its cold light licking the walls. He opened his journal. Day 10. We found something buried in the canyon. Artificial. Still alive. This is no hypothesis. Mars once had hands that built, minds that dreamed. But Michael's ravings haunt me. Don't take it. Did we uncover a relic, or disturb a sealed tomb? He closed the journal and stared through the window. Kandar Chasma loomed in the distance, blacker than night. The shard's faint light flickered in his eyes, a flame that refused to die. As he rose to leave, the shard flared bright. A pulse rolled through the base. Systems flickered, screens across the habitat lit red with glyphs. Akira's voice rang from the lab, half terrified, half ecstatic. "It's not random. It's sending a message." Fatima rushed in, eyes brimming. "They're calling us deeper." Daniel stood frozen, heart pounding. He knew what this meant. They had crossed a line. They weren't explorers anymore. They were intruders in a secret that was never meant to be theirs. Morning brought no relief. In the cramped science bay of Mars Base Alpha, the shard of black alloy rested inside a sealed chamber, cables snaking out to banks of sensors. Its faint green glow painted the walls, hypnotic, almost alive. Luis bent over the electron scope, his gloved fingers steady but tense. He was a doctor first, but his cross-training in biochemistry had become their only hope. Akira worked feverishly at the console, code and graphs streaming across the screens. Fatima stood by the glass, eyes fixed on the object like a believer staring at a relic. Daniel stepped in quietly. "Anything." Luis looked up, eyes burning. "Yes. And I don't think we're ready for it." Luis projected the data. A lattice bloomed across the display, atoms locked in perfect symmetry. "This is alloy, but not like ours. Mostly iron, some titanium. Yet the atomic structure, it's arranged with absolute precision. Not natural." He zoomed closer. The lattice became a web of lines, like circuits. "This isn't just metal. It's a machine." Silence swallowed the room. Fatima whispered, trembling, "A machine, buried for millions of years." Akira muttered, almost reverent, "This is nanotech. Atom-scale engineering. Beyond anything Earth has." Daniel's fists clenched. The truth was no longer theory. Intelligence had once walked Mars. While Luis dissected the alloy, Daniel examined the soil samples. He slid a thin smear under the bioscope. At first, only dust and quartz grains. Then, he froze. Tiny, oval, a fossilized membrane. No life, but the structure remained. "Impossible," Daniel whispered. He adjusted focus. A chain of cells emerged, identical to ancient Earth bacteria. His heart slammed in his chest. He keyed the comm. "Everyone, here, now." They crowded the scope. Elena bent low, her stoic face cracking with shock. Luis went pale. Fatima broke into tears. Daniel's voice shook. "There it is. Undeniable. Mars once carried life." Fatima gripped his hand, sobbing, yet smiling. "I knew it. I always knew. And now, it's real." Elena's hands trembled. Moscow's orders echoed in her mind. All findings are to be transmitted home. But staring at the fossil cells, she felt those orders shrink to dust. Akira whispered, "If microbes lived here, there could have been more. Complex forms. Even a civilization." A crash from the med bay broke the spell. Michael bolted upright, sweat dripping, eyes wild. He caught sight of the alloy shard through the glass. "You brought it here." His voice cracked into a scream. "You idiots. They won't let us take it. We're all dead." Luis tried to calm him. Daniel stepped forward. "Michael, what did you see in that canyon?" Michael thrashed, shouting, "I don't remember, not clearly. But I heard them, in my head. Voices whispering, 'Do not take. You don't understand.'" Fatima shook her head violently. No, they're not threats. They left memory. They want us to learn. You misheard them. Michael laughed, broken and bitter. Learn? No, we're invaders. That's all we'll ever be. Louise sedated him. His body went limp, but the echo of his warning lingered in every mind. That night, Daniel sat alone. On the screen, the microbe fossils glowed under magnification. Beside him, the shard pulsed faintly, like a heart still beating. Day 11. We've found proof. Mars held life. Civilizations built machines, left relics. But Michael's ravings haunt me. Did trauma twist him, or did he truly hear them? Either way, we've crossed a line. And once crossed, there is no going back. He closed the journal, eyes fixed on the shard's glow. Watching, waiting. The lights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the base. The shard flared, bright and violent. Its glow flooded the lab with green fire. Across every monitor, red glyphs burned to life. Akira's shout cracked the silence. It's not random, it's speaking. Not to the machines, to us. Fatima clutched her chest, tears streaming, her voice breaking with awe. This isn't a warning. It's a beginning. They're leading us deeper. Daniel stood frozen, pulse hammering. He understood now. They were no longer explorers. They were witnesses to a buried civilization, and trespassers in a truth that was never theirs to claim. 3 days after the artifact flared in the base, no one slept well. Even sealed in quarantine, it pulsed faintly, its electromagnetic waves crawling into every system, sometimes whispering through the static like half-formed words. Daniel called the crew together. His voice was steady, resolute. We can't stay blind. Whatever is sending these signals, it's inside Kandor Chasma. I propose we send an expedition into the canyon. Michael, pale and shaken, pushed himself upright. You're insane. 2 men already died down there. You want to line us up next. Fatima's voice trembled but carried fire. John and Ji-hoon died for a reason. That canyon isn't empty. It holds memory, answers about Martian civilization. Elena, after a long silence, finally nodded. I'll go. I need to see it with my own eyes. Daniel's decision came like a hammer. Then it's settled. I'll lead. Fatima, Elena, and Akira with me. Luis, you stay here with Michael, monitor from the base. 2 rovers crawled across the plain, engines grumbling against the silence. Above them, the sky was a dim veil of dust, light weak as dying embers. The canyon walls rose higher with every kilometer, towering cliffs swallowing what little sunlight remained. They switched on their beams, slicing pale arcs across layers of stone etched with the memory of ancient seas. Fatima pressed close to the glass, voice catching. Those ripples, they're waves. Mars once had oceans. Elena said nothing, but her eyes softened. Akira monitored his screen. The signal spiked, rising with every turn. He muttered, uneasy. It's like, something is waiting for us. After 5 hours, the rovers stopped at a sheer wall. The signal screamed in their instruments. Daniel stepped out, light sweeping across the base of the cliff. There, an opening. A black wound in the rock, 10 meters wide, breathing out faint red dust like exhaled breath. Fatima gasped. This is it. The source is down there. Michael's voice burst over comms from the base, sharp with fear. Don't go in. That's not a library, it's a grave. Daniel's reply was cold, final. We're going in. They descended on foot, lights cutting narrow paths through the dust. The air felt warmer, damp even, as if the tunnel held a hidden pulse. The walls gleamed under their touch, smooth, unnatural. Fatima ran her gloved hand across the stone. No erosion. Someone carved this. Elena stopped, sweeping her beam higher. Lines spread across the wall, etched patterns. She froze. Look, symbols. Under the light, hundreds of markings shimmered, spirals, arrows, interlocking circles. They ran endlessly along the tunnel walls. Fatima's breath hitched. She scribbled furiously in her notebook, hand shaking. Like hieroglyphs, but more complex. Multi-layered language. Akira scanned them into his pad, eyes wide. They repeat in cycles, patterned like math. This isn't art. It's a message. Daniel stared, feeling the symbols move beneath his gaze. This is no silent stone. This is a story. Back at the base, Michael's voice crackled harsh over comms. Get out of there. You're hallucinating. You see what you want to see. Fatima shouted back, tears in her eyes. No, this is history. The voice of a civilization that once lived. We have a duty to listen. Alina's hands tightened on her transmitter. Moscow's orders echoed, transmit all findings immediately. She wavered, torn between loyalty and the awe flooding her chest. Daniel cut through the noise. Enough. We didn't come here to argue. Let Mars speak for itself. The tunnel sloped downward, stretching for hundreds of meters. The signal grew stronger, green glimmers flickering along the stone-like veins of light. Akira stopped, sweat on his brow. These match the glyphs we decoded from the artifact. It's a key. A map. Fatima whispered, trembling. They brought us here. This isn't chance. Daniel pressed forward, heart hammering. Every step dragged them deeper into something vast, something alive. They paused to rest. Daniel scribbled quickly in his journal. Day 13. We've found a tunnel inside Kandar Chasma. Smooth walls, etched with symbols. Fatima believes it's language. Akira sees math. To me, it feels like scripture, prayer or warning. Mars isn't dead. It's telling its story through stone. He closed the pad, staring into the darkness ahead. Fear pressed on him, but alongside it burned a fierce hunger to know. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast cavern. The ceiling soared above them, lost in shadow. And on the far wall, glyphs blazed with light, not carved but alive, glowing like constellations. Fatima fell to her knees, overwhelmed. My God, this is a temple of memory. Their final message. Akira's voice shook. The signal, it's syncing with the symbols. This isn't text. It's a program. Then, all their lamps flickered out. The cavern drowned in the glyphs, glow, blue-green light washing over them. The air trembled, as though the tomb itself was waking. Daniel clenched his fists, whispering. We've stepped into the heart of Mars's memory. The glow of the glyphs faded, revealing a cavern vast enough to swallow their beams of light. The ceiling soared out of reach, lost in darkness. The air was thick, heavy, pulsing faintly as though some ancient heart still beat beneath the stone. Fatima stepped forward, her voice trembling with awe. This isn't a cave, it's architecture. Someone built this place. Elena swept her light across the chamber, and froze. At its center, rising from the stone floor, stood a pyramid. Not monumental like those of Egypt, but small, no more than 3 meters tall. Yet its surface gleamed like polished alloy, catching their lights and throwing them back in hues of red and green. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered, almost reverent. This isn't nature's work. This was made. They circled it slowly. Up close, its skin shimmered with faint energy. Beneath the alloy surface, something pulsed, cool, steady, alive. Akira scanned it, his voice taut. Not solid. Hollow interior. It's emitting a steady signal. Fatima pressed her glove against it, shuddering. The cold sank into her bones, but beneath it, she felt a subtle vibration. Like a heartbeat. My God, it's alive. Alina's voice cut sharp. Step back. We don't know what defenses it carries. Daniel circled closer, eyes raking over every angle. His boot hit a recessed stone. Click. The chamber trembled. The pyramid lit from within, lines of green fire racing across its surface like veins igniting after eons of slumber. A low, resonant hum filled the cavern. Akira's eyes went wide. You've activated something. A spear of light burst from the pyramid's apex, sweeping the chamber like a search beam. It struck Michael, who had insisted on coming despite his injuries. He screamed as the beam hurled him across the rock. Blood smeared his visor as he hit the wall. Michael. Fatima shrieked. Daniel dragged Michael back, shouting for cover. From the base, Luisa's voice cracked over comms. Get him clear. If that's a weapon, it'll burn him alive. Akira stared at his readouts, voice shaking. No, it's not a weapon. It's scanning him, recording him. Elena raised her sidearm, teeth gritted. If it fires again, I'm destroying it. Fatima threw herself in the way, eyes blazing. No, this is knowledge, not a threat. Destroy it, and we destroy history. The beam flickered out. Symbols crawled across the pyramid's surface, identical to those etched along the tunnel walls. They shifted, reformed, alive with meaning. Akira whispered, barely breathing. It's language. It's talking to us. Fatima dropped to her knees, tears streaming. Is it greeting us? Warning us? What are you trying to tell us? Daniel looked down at Michael. The man convulsed, whispering incoherently, but Daniel knew, from the terror in his eyes, that Michael had heard something. Something meant only for him. Back at the rover, as they stabilized Michael, Daniel scrawled into his journal. Day 14. In the depths of Kandar Chasma, we found a pyramid. It lives. It burns with energy. When triggered, it struck Michael, not with fire, but with knowledge, or judgment. I cannot tell. What I know is this is no ruin. This is proof of civilization. And perhaps, we just broke their seal. His hand trembled as he paused. The words he thought he heard whispered through his skull would not leave him. Do not repeat our mistakes. As they prepared to retreat, the pyramid blazed again. A wave of electromagnetic force ripped outward. Back at Base Alpha, every screen flared to life, red glyphs filling the air. One word translated itself, stark and brutal. Warning. Luis's panicked voice roared through comms. What the hell did you activate? The whole base is under its control. Daniel tightened his helmet seals, heart pounding. He knew the truth. They were no longer explorers. They were trespassers in the guarded memory of Mars. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and give me a like and share. That's the best motivation for me to keep writing more.